Godzilla X Kong, Guardians of Equestria. Written by Phantom Plays 1234 Chapter 11. Titan Battle Royale Part 1. After being nearly overpowered by Ghidorah, Godzilla laid down for some much-needed rest while Meadowsbrook tended to his injuries. Meanwhile, Tempest and Eileen exchanged information with each other. "I see, so this Tobias is the one responsible for everything that's happened," said Tempest. "That's pretty much the gist of it," said Eileen. "If that's the case, I don't understand why he would need the remains of the Storm King statue," said Tempest. "This is Tobias we're talking about," said Trapper. "Whatever he plans on doing, it can't be good." The group jumps as Godzilla howls in pain. "I'm sorry, Godzilla, but you need to stop moving," Meadowsbrook sighed as she attempted to calm Godzilla down. "It seems like Meadowsbrook isn't having much luck," said Sunburst. They looked up to see Fluttershy feeding fresh water to Bylund. "So what's your plan now?" asked Tempest. "It's not like Tobias is going to randomly decide to show himself." Then, as if on cue, Spike belches as a letter emerges from the flames. "A letter?" Twilight walked over and unraveled the scroll as she began to read. "It's from Cadence." Twilight gasped. "What's it say?" asked Starlight. "She said there were sightings of a monster in the frozen north and it's causing a panic in the Crystal Empire, so she wants us to hurry on over to ask for our help," said Twilight. "But Godzilla isn't fully healed yet," said Fluttershy. "Leave him to us, the Crystal Empire requires your aid," said Meadowsbrook. "We'll accompany you as well," said Celestia. "If it's another Titan we should be there with him," said Eileen. Twilight and her friends huddled around as she used her teleportation spell to warp them out of the forest while the Monarch Task Force piled into the heaven and took off, leaving the pillars to tend to Godzilla and the other Titans. Upon arrival, Twilight and her friends were greeted with a sense of dread and unease. Not a single crystal pony was out walking and the streets were swarming with guards. "What the hey?" asked Rainbow Dash. "What happened here?" asked Capper. "I don't know, but I'm sure Cadence will be able to provide some insight on what's going on," said Twilight. "Hey look," Applejack pointed up to see the head coming to a stop before descending. "What the hell?" Bernie asked as they walked. "So this is the Crystal Empire. Kinga reminds me of the Iwi tribe back in Hollow Earth," said Trapper. "How did you find us?" asked Starlight. "Easy, we just went north and saw you all gathered around," said Trapper. "Wow, he's good," said Capper. "Never mind that, these ponies need help, right?" asked Eileen. "Alright, come on, let's head to the castle," said Twilight. The task force followed after Twilight and her friends as they lead them to the castle. Twilight and her friends wasted no time as they rushed to the throne room where Cadence in shining armor and Cadence were waiting. "Twilight, you made it." Cadence gasped. "Cadence, is everything alright?" Twilight asked. "Oh Twilight, it's horrible, everything's a mess," said Cadence. "Calm down, Cadence, just explain to us what happened," said Celestia. "Celestia, oh thank Equestria you're here. It's terrible." A group of crystal ponies went up to the frozen north and came back absolutely terrified, claiming to have seen a massive three-headed monster that was wreaking havoc near the summit, explained Cadence. "A three-headed monster, Miss Eileen, isn't that?" Sunburst asked, looking in a direction. "Hyper Mecha Ghidorah," Eileen nodded. "Hyper what now?" Shining Armor looked at them with a confused expression. Twilight, are those?" Cadence asked. "Yes, they're humans. It's a long story, but I can assure you that they're on our side," Twilight explained. "I see. Well, I suppose now's not the time to be asking questions. If they can help us, we would gladly assist them," said Cadence. "In that case, do you have any idea if this monster's still up on the mountain?" Eileen asked. But Cadence's statement was suddenly interrupted by a loud mechanical roar. That didn't sound good. Applejack swallowed hard. Suddenly a loud bang rang out through the castle as the doors to the throne room swung open and a familiar figure entered. "Look like I found you," Tobias sneered. "Tobias?" Twilight growled as her friends turned to face him. "To think that my little bait worked? You truly are more naive than I thought," Tobias snickered. "Bait?" asked Spike. "What, you thought that I was just going to announce my presence that easily?" asked Tobias. "It's a little too early for that, isn't it?" "What do you mean?" asked Eileen. "I know what you've been up to, Dr. Andrews. Honestly, to think that you were able to not only destroy Tora and Amudos, but to also free Angus from my control. You've proven to be quite annoying," Tobias hissed. "Well, I mean, you did technically provoke Godzilla," said Bernie. "That overgrown lizard didn't do everything. I know you've been using that girl to ask that monkey for help, and on top of that you've gotten the chicken involved as well," growled Tobias. and now you're going as far as to tend to his injuries. You truly have no shame, filthy sewer rats. That would be our line, you fiend. You polluted the Equestria forest and used that poor rose as bait for the trash heap, and now you're dragging an entire kingdom into your machine's destructive rampage for your own selfish goals. Here's Luna. HMPH, say what you will, but I'm afraid this is where your attempt to save this world ends. You thought I would show myself to face you. He sneered. Allow me to present a little surprise I've been saving for you. He pulled out another remote and pushed a button as an explosion takes out a huge chunk of the castle wall, giving them a view of the Crystal Empire. You see, I'd been watching your every movement since I destroyed the capital, and saw how both Kong and Godzilla handled the Mudos while Radon was pursuing Anguirus, he explained. Sure, Kong and Godzilla was able to overpower the two aliens, but during the battle with Ghidorah, I saw just how badly they struggled, and, of course, Radon and Anguirus came to their aid. But considering how the two were at each other's throats, surely by the time they faced Ghidorah, they would be drained of energy, and sure enough, I was right. He stepped to the side so that the group could see Hypermecha Ghidorah towering over the city as the guards attempted to fight off the threat. But now with Godzilla, Kong, Radon, and Anguirus all out of commission for the time being, there's nothing you can do to save this kingdom. The four villains they kept as prisoners, plus the fifth one that was still petrified, well, let's just say that they had other uses to them besides their magic. What are you implying? Asked Twilight. You see, after I intentionally destroyed that underground facility, I had my team escort them out, explained Tobias. You kept them alive? Asked Rainbow Dash. Of course, but only because I had other plans for them, said Tobias. Other plans? Asked Applejack. You see, Hypermecha Ghidorah has the ability to create copies of Godzilla's former rivals. However, there is one other function I haven't mentioned to you yet, said Tobias. During the mecha's construction, I had taken DNA samples of those five, hoping it might come in use, and sure enough they did. Is that why you had kept the Storm King statue in your lab? Asked Twilight. HMPH, about time you figured it out, said Tobias. Using the 5 DNA samples I'd taken, I fed them into my mecha's data system and saved them for when the time was right. And now, by combining the data from the Titan files and the DNA samples, my mecha was able to give birth to 5 new creations. He snapped his fingers as the left and right heads on the mecha turned to their respective sides and fired a blue holographic beam downwards and slowly moved up as 2 holographic figures were created. Finally, the 2 heads zapped their creations with a magic blast from their visor-like eyes, bringing the 2 creatures to life. The 2 heads repeated the process, creating 2 more copies, while the center head carried out the process only once, creating a total of 5 new monsters. Behold my newest creations, Tobias announced. Okay, this is definitely bad, said Rainbow Dash. Allow me to introduce you to them, said Tobias. He pointed to the monster on the far left, which seemed to resemble King Ghidorah, but instead of the usual gold and yellow scales it was black. This version of Ghidorah also had red eyes with green irises and hazy purple smoke flowing out. By combining the Titan data of Des Ghidorah and King Sambura, I was able to create a version of Ghidorah that could not only phase through walls and obstacles like smoke, but also create crystals that could be used as a form of defense or offense. Thus I have dubbed this monster Shadow Ghidorah. Next he pointed to the monster on the far right. This monster sported a large saw on his frontal abdomen and had 2 massive steel hooks in replacement for hands and smaller ones for toes. It had a tail with spikes running down and 3 sail-like fins on its back with a single red visor for its eyes. Just like Radon, the monster had a beak instead of a mouth and had a bright red coat with 2 large black horns that protruded from its head. By combining the Titan data of Jigen and Taurik, I was able to create a monster with a large arsenal of attacks, but also with the ability to absorb magic from living beings. Thus I have dubbed this monster Trigon. Oh sweet Celeste to know. Twilight swallowed hard as her memories of fighting the 2 started flowing back. He pointed to the monster on the left, which resembled a cross between Godzilla and a giant dragonfly. It had a thick black skin covered with green spikes and a head that appeared more reptilian than insect. It had a long tail with a massive stinger at the tip and 2 mandibles. For this one, I have combined the Titan data of Anguirus and the DNA of Queen Chrysalis, creating a monster that has high agility and possesses the power to shapeshift. Thus I have dubbed this monster Chrysaquirus. He then points to the monster on the right, which resembled a big bull cat with light salmon pink scales and a tuft of sky blue hair on its head with 3 horns protruding from it. By combining the Titan data of Gabra and Cozy Glow, it gave birth to a monster with the agility so high it makes Rainbow Dash look like the scrap design of a Tejo monster. Tobias laughed. Hey! Rainbow Dash exclaimed, clearly insulted. I don't know what that means, but I am definitely 20% much more cooler than that ugly cat. Well, this ugly cat also can blast all of you into next week using its powerful magic. Thus I have dubbed this monster Globara. He pointed to the 5th and final monster at the center. This monster was an ape like Kong, but was much lankier and had elongated limbs. Black fur covered most of its body except its face, scalp, upper torso, arms, and legs. A giant bone-like whip was wrapped over its shoulders and the tip was decorated with a blue crystal that appeared to conduct electricity. This final monster was created by combining the Titan data of Scare King into a little DNA I could retrieve from the Storm King. Thankfully it was enough to create a monster that could not only move fast but attack with enough power and ferocity to overpower both Godzilla and Kong. Not only that, but it can conjure up electricity using the crystal of the end of its weapon. But I couldn't come up with any names for it, so I just stuck with Storm King. How is that relevant? Asked Starlight. It's not, and neither are any of you standing in this room, sneered Tobias. Now I would provide a demonstration of how these monsters function, but I think it's better you see for yourself, that is if you survive. Tobias laughed as he and Hyper King Ghidorah warps out of the Crystal Empire as the monsters roar and starts attacking the city. Hey, don't run, coward! Rainbow Dash exclaims. Ugh, he got away again. This is bad. If we leave these monsters alone the whole city will be destroyed, said Cadence. Yeah, but we're just ponies and a couple of humans and those things are big tall monsters. What can we do? Asked Applejack. Suddenly another roar echoed throughout the empire, grabbing everyone's attention. When they look up, they saw Godzilla, Kong, Revan, and Enga slowly making their way towards the empire, fully recovered and ready for a fight. Well, their timing couldn't be any better, said Trapper. They watched as the two groups of titans faced each other. As Godzilla let out a war cry, he rushed towards the Storm King and his minions with Kong, Revan, and Enga right behind him. The Titan Battle Royale had begun. If you guys are enjoying this story, please give it a like, comment your thoughts, give me a follow and share this story with your friends, and I hope you all enjoy.